without further ado, can I ask you to welcome Duncan, who's going to talk on timber frame houses in Leintwardine.
Lovely, thank you. Well, thank you very much. It's wonderful to see a good audience, and you're very well behaved, and you've asked questions, which is just great. So, Leintwardine is a fascinating place, as you all know, and it seems to have these periods of the Roman period, and then the Middle Ages somewhere in the middle, and then the modern period, which stretches back to the houses we're going to look at. So I feel we're sort of dealing with the icing on the top of the cake, and that the cake is still buried. But let's see what we can find. Of course, this is the most significant part. It shows the Roman part, about which relatively little is known, tragically. So it would be wonderful if the VCH got round to digging some holes in the ground and exploring a little bit more. So I tend to deal with the standing archaeology. Certainly the buildings that I'm going to be looking at are the ones we can see. Now, I didn't actually look at all the buildings we can see because there are big buildings hidden by where they're up long drives, and I always find that slightly intimidating. And behind hedges, of course. So, but nevertheless, we're just going to have a look around the village and hopefully suggest what you might be looking for in terms of the buildings. We can ask some questions. Why did the post-Roman settlement development take place on the east side? Why is it labelled Watling Street when you'd almost expect it to be right through the middle, as the main road is? And it may well be that the answer to that question is known, but I do put that forward. Was the development on the east side due to the siting of the church? Or was the siting of the church due to very much earlier development along that side of the settlement? Why did the settlement not develop right down the middle? So I do think these questions are of interest, and we might actually seek some answers to them. There's the church, of course, as you all know. Are there any houses earlier than the 15th century? I say the 15th century because timber-framed houses in this area tend to be 15th century at the earliest. Anything earlier than that has usually rotted away. But there are one or two surprises in Leintwardine. Can we identify the primary function of all the surviving buildings? And as I'm sure you know, these buildings are altered all the time. I see it happening even now. When somebody buys a house, they set to altering it every time. And the kitchen is renewed, the bathroom's renewed, and then the next owner takes out that lovely new kitchen and puts in another one. Or else moves the kitchen totally to a different part of the building. So changes take place all the time with buildings, and particularly where you're concerned with shops. They've all vanished in Leintwardine, except for one or two. And there obviously were many, many shops. And often the shops are right on the edge of the settlement as well, because that's the place where somebody walks into the settlement and you can nobble them and sell them something. Now we're all rushing around in cars. That sort of thing doesn't happen. But if you're talking about the 19th century and earlier, that does happen or did happen. And certainly that contraction of the shops at the edge of the settlement are the ones that die first, and then and get converted into houses, and then that creeps in towards the centre. So we're seeing some really dramatic changes, particularly now with the internet, which has killed so many shops. But it's worth thinking about as a subject for a project. Is there a consistent width to the burgage plots on the east side? We have all these properties along here. It looks as if there's a pretty regular size of burgage, but I haven't looked at the dimensions, but that would be an interesting one to explore. Did Wigmore Abbey influence the layout of the settlement? I think that's almost certainly the case, but I'm only suggesting that that's the case. Obviously, Wigmore Abbey did have a big part to play in the post-Roman settlement in Leintwardine. So, the date range of surviving buildings. Well, looking at timber frames, we've got 15th century frames, 16th and 17th century frames. There are even a few 18th century frames, usually filled with brick and not very well made. Curiously enough, they're not desperately appealing. But of course, many of these are hidden behind stucco. So when a timber frame starts rotting, you can either replace the timbers or you can cover it all up. And then along comes somebody today and uncovers it and realizes they've opened a can of worms, because all the timbers need replacing, and it's very expensive. It's why I don't live in a timber-framed house, I should say. Then we've got 18th century buildings in stone or brick. I think mostly in stone, or else hidden by stucco again. Then the 19th century, we've got brick or stone, and 20th century, well, anything goes, doesn't it? When we get to the 20th century, so there's a whole range of buildings to look at in the village, and it's extremely interesting. So let's see. This is the first one I put up, Church House, which I think is in reasonably new ownership. I think it's had money spent on it, and it's looking very tidy. And luckily the hedge is low enough for me to take a photograph. Hooray. And there's a recess in the front wall. Somebody must know what that recess is about. At first I thought there were steps leading into the house, or was there a pump there? Was there a village pump in that recess? Which is often the case with these sort of things. Don't tell me now, but I'm sure somebody knows. But Church House is particularly interesting because what we have is a sealed hall range, a very modest one, 16th century in date. And on here, there is a crosswing. And the crosswing originally had a gable at this end, and it's been taken down. The gable has been removed, and a sloping roof put in its place. So the building looks very strange. It wasn't done recently. I don't know how long ago, but it's an interesting arrangement. But if we look at the back of the building, we have timber framing, and we have timber framing infilled with brick. I think some of it infilled with stone, and some of it with, I think, probably with still with lath and stucco of some sort. But there are all sorts of things going on in this frame. For a start, there's a blocked up door just there. And do you see this curve on the timber here? That's because they were moving barrels through the house, and they wanted just to get them through. And I see this again and again, this mutilation of doorways to carry a barrel through. Or maybe it was a very fat pig that they wanted to get through the house into the back garden. Who knows? But anyway, here we are, 16th century building. And just here is the chimney stack, which actually is in a separate little bay in the house. And it possibly was a smoke bay. That is, this is later than a medieval open hearth hall. This is an attempt to control the fumes, and I think they had a smoke hood or some sort of arrangement before the actual chimney stack was built. So just looking at some of the external aspects of this building, we can pick up some interesting thoughts and ask questions about what the devil is going on. The other thing is, this is a blocked up doorway as well. But I think this is the original blocked up door, the original doorway, should I say, which has been blocked up and was a cross passage running through the building. The cross passage is here. This means that that cross wing was a service wing. And just to show you the layout, this is the front of the building. I'm sorry, this is very simple. This is the front door just here. You can see that the roof has been raised at the front to put bigger windows in upstairs. But it hasn't been raised at the back because you want to see what's going on in the street, after all. You want to see who's going past. So you raise the roof on the front and not on the back. And I see this again and again. It's a sort of status thing almost. You know, look, we've raised our roof. How aren't we wonderful? And you keep it the old way at the back. And if you recall, we have dormer windows in the back of the building. So they haven't bothered to raise it at the back to change it. But here's that weird sloping roof, and we can look at this angle. There's the sloping roof, and if we just look at the roof structure in those two, just that part of the roof, most of it is gone, but we've got a little bit just at the back here, and we can have a look. This is an example of a common rafter roof. That is, there are no purlins and there are no principal rafters. They're all common rafters. And this is something that either indicates a very unusual building or else it's a particularly early building. This is, on these timbers, there is smoke blackening. It's a build-up of carbon on the surface, making it rather like fine black sandpaper. And this is because they had a fire burning in a hearth, either on the first floor or the ground floor. If they had it on the ground floor, it was open right up to the ridge of the roof. It sounds improbable, but that seems to be the case. The other thing is, if we look very closely at the timber here, we can see there's diagonal saw cuts. And this indicates that the date of the building is earlier than 1530, at least. So to say this is 15th century would be okay, and it may actually be a 14th century fragment which has been left. So that's an interesting one to explore further. This is another timber frame building, rather hidden behind a hedge. And when I was photographing it the other day, there were roadworks going on, so which made it rather challenging even to take this one. But I do take my life in my hands occasionally for the subject of buildings. And here we are, number 33, and it would be an interesting building to explore. On the face of it, this is a 17th century building. It could be slightly earlier. And it's got square framing, square panel framing, which is the case with quite a few of the timber frame buildings in Leintwardine. Here's one that we all know. This again has been refurbished relatively recently. Square panels, and it's square panels right up to the wall plate along here, and the windows just sneak out from under the thatch. It's very pleasing. A high plinth. It stands on a high plinth. So is this an earlier building? Is it an early building that is pretending to be slightly later, pretending to be 17th century? Is it perhaps an earlier building than that? We actually don't know. And if you look at the report on the listed building text, which Historic England have, it's invariably inaccurate and never gets the date right. So we have to be very careful. So maybe 17th century. This is interesting. Do you see how we've got 4 panels high here, very square panels? Did this have a gable at the front? Why is it different? Is it because it's different in status at that end of the building? On the face of it, this looks like the best end. This looks a little bit like a hall, with a small hall and then a service end just here, and then a later building that's just there. So who knows, but to explore this building in more detail could give more information about how it was laid out when it started its life. Courthouse. You all know this one, I'm sure. I love the pictures of this building. If you look at the 19th century pictures of this building, you realise that this was the route up to the shop, into the shop. There's the shop window. And we have a cellar just here. And I do think that would be a very interesting area to explore. There must be quite a few cellars. To make a cellar, you have to dig a hole, and you may well dig into Roman deposits, and you may actually incorporate them in the cellar in some way. And I do think a survey of all the cellars in Leintwardine just might reveal some interesting material concerning the Roman past anyway, if not the later. But a weird building because the windows are all over the place. This is not central. That replaces a much smaller window, which I see in photographs of the building. And the question is, why is it called courthouse? Was it really a court? Was a court held there? If it was, where was it held in the building? It would have to accommodate quite a few people. Is it timber framed? I think it almost certainly is. And if we look at the other end of it, I hope you can see there's a bit of timber sticking out there. But not only that, this is a jetted gable. This is the gable end. This chimney has been built later. It's been built when this addition was made, I'm sure. And it's to do with the service facility in the house. But just here, there's a bracket, a timber bracket poking out. So we've got a timber frame building here. This is I'll just go back to the previous one. It's got a jetted gable. Now that's actually a statement of it wants you to see that gable. And I would suggest that actually it was probably jetted on the first floor as well, and that the original front was set back. And why is it jetted on that side? It's because the church is up there, and people coming from the church walking down will see that front and mark the significance of the building. And that's another to explore about attitudes to status and such like. So just a little clue there is one thing to look out for. And of course, we've got all this stucco, which we can't take off. So it's a matter of looking inside and seeing what's going on there. You'll notice when I'm amazed actually at how many for sale signs I've seen in Leintwardine. So there's quite a lot of that going on. This is another fascinating building. I mean, what is going on here? We've got very heavy framing just here. Do you see how we've got heavy framing? We've got something that looks like a buttress leaning against the frame. Is it a chimney stack that's been closed off? I think it probably is. But if it is a chimney stack, what's it doing on the corner of the building? That's an odd place. It was often done in the 18th century. Maybe there is a corner fireplace in that room. I don't know. But it is the sort of thing that would happen in the 18th century. And you can see that it extends further back, and then the roof has been raised in a rather sort of flimsy, it looks rather flimsy. But in fact, I've got another photograph of it looking from a different direction. This shows the top a bit more, and we've got these big braces. And I'd hazard a guess that we might have a 15th century structure here. We might have maybe a bit later here, 16th, and we've probably got 17th century right on the top, maybe even 18th century, a raising of the roof. Yes, there's another picture. There we are. That's an earlier shot. And it's sort of jetted just here. What's going on? It's a very complex sequence. And this huge chimney stack here, I mean, that must be a big bread oven as well as a fireplace in there. But I think the answer is that it was a back-to-back fireplace. Because when we go to the next picture, we see that the other side of the building is stone. What happened? Where did the timber go? There's a blocked access here, maybe a window, maybe a door. So there are all sorts of things going on here. We've got tie beams running through the building, so it's not going to fall down, hopefully. And a chimney stack, this chimney stack just here. But if we go to another picture, it was a while before I actually spotted where this picture belongs. There's the side of the building we've just been looking at. And here's the demolished, I mean, health and safety? What's going on here? These look like a couple of scallywags up there stealing slates, but I'm sure they're not, just in case they're in the audience. I don't know what this building was, but it was of some significance and some size. What was its relation to the church? It's right on the edge of the church precinct. Had it some function in relation to the church? Okay, we've got a little building here, which is actually still in place. As I'm sure you all know, it's sitting there with its stone slates. Fascinating. I think it's called the Bothy or something. I don't know whether anyone's done any research on it, but what is it doing there? It's right on the edge of the well, it's in the graveyard. Let's face it. It's actually. So these are all questions that I would be asking if I was going around looking at these buildings, and I would be knocking at the door and asking very politely if I could have a look inside, please, and we could probably discover a bit more. This is a nice little cottage, Chiddle Cottage. I asked the owner where the name came from, and maybe somebody here knows. But it's a charming little cottage. It's been raised in height. Originally, the eaves level was just along here. A big chimney stack at one end. It's 2 bays long. It has a big chimney stack at one end. It's a classic arrangement for a small, a modest 17th century house. You have the living and cooking area here, and then you have the probably a sleeping area in this room at this end. The doorway just here, the original doorway just here, coming in right alongside the fireplace. That would have been the original access. And you can see where it's been raised. There's the principal rafter running up there. And the owner let me have a look at a photograph. Isn't that wonderful? I mean, I just think these are wonderful. And here they are. There's the blocked doorway. This is a later door. Obviously, it's in the wrong place. If you know about these things, there's a partition running along there, and you can see it's quite tidy. The thatching is quite tidy, but it's amazing how I love all this sort of. Today it would be regarded as scruffy. But it would then, I'm sure, it was perfectly okay. And look, we've got doorsteps here running up. This child is sitting on that one. It's a wonderful picture. But it does give you an idea of what the building was like. I should say the owner did suggest that it was a very early building and asked whether it might be the earliest building in the village. But he very kindly, he and his wife, let me look inside. And there's a cross frame runs just here, which is an original part of the building. And it's sawn in a pit. It's pit sawn. So it undoubtedly was later than 1540. So it's either 16th century, later 16th century or 17th century in date. But aren't they wonderful, those ladies? And they're very smartly dressed, aren't they? Which is just great. And I wonder whose baby it is. You know, is it hers? I don't know. So I think it's great. Wonderful. And these early photographs can give such a marvellous clue as to how the building was originally laid out. And of course, having somebody, a person in the picture is wonderful. So here's another timber frame building. This one has been raised in height as well. That's the original eaves level. And you can see that the end wall has been built in stone. So when the roof was raised, that's when the end wall was built. There's not two phases. There's not a lower roof line on that end wall. It actually is right up to there in one go. So they obviously raised the roof and built that stone wall at the end in the same sequence. And if we look at the door, you can see just here, maybe you can't see, but I'll tell you. Just here, there are peg holes on each side, and there obviously was a door head just there. And this is the original door, or an earlier door, probably the original. And the reason I say that is that we have peg holes on both sides, and you couldn't put that timber in unless you were building the house at the same time. So we also have pegging up here and along here, which had bigger timbers running up to the original eaves level. And this lightweight framing has gone in at some time. So you can't help wondering whether this building went through a period of considerable dilapidation at some time before the roof was raised and repairs were made. And you might ask, when it went through this bad patch, why did it become derelict? And why was it repaired? Was there someone with a little bit of money who moved in and did the work? Or did the landlord do it, of course? So there are a lot of questions that you find yourself asking with these buildings. This is wonderful. This is the only bit of framing showing from the roadside. I think some of the framing is showing at the back. But this is the old Swan Inn, as I'm sure you know, with this marvellous 19th century work up here, this gable with this separated, decorated area here is just marvellous. And you see a lot of this done in the 19th century. It's very bold, and it's they don't want to show the old truss, roof truss, which is hidden behind that. So they put a new one on and sit it out at the front. It really is fascinating. But you can see this is all stucco. So I'm sure this is hiding timber framing, as it is here. This is all infilled with brick now. So that increases the weight of the structure, which is not always a good thing. So if you've got a timber frame building, don't put brick in it. And we've got a stone wall built underneath, and all sorts of things have gone on. But this house, luckily, you can get estate agents' photographs. Here's an estate agent's photograph. This is marvellous. I'm not exactly sure where this is in the building. I think this is in that cross wing. And you can see that we have a massive tie beam, which is cambered. So it's very deep at the centre and then tapers off at each end. This suggests an early frame. It's unlikely to be 17th century. It's likely to be 16th century. It may even be a touch earlier. What this also indicates, the tie beam runs on and there's a gap. And that suggests that this was originally a roof that was that had a nice straw hat on it, and the thickness of the thatch would have filled that gap and more. So just from that clue alone, there's information, and you can just see the jowl post of the wall post just there. Much of it hidden in the wall now. So. Great, good old estate agents. And at the back of the building, there's this shed. I think we can call it a shed. It's got a corrugated iron roof, but here's a 17th century truss, probably cambered as well, as you can see. But I think from the structure that it's a 17th century truss holding the roof up, and it all looks reasonably solid actually. So. Not about to fall down. Good, solid. Yes. Right, more timber framing. There's this, again, two sale notices on this one. It's very interesting looking at the houses in this road, because it slopes, it goes uphill. And this gives you a real problem if you're building a house, because this one there's the floor level there. The next one has got a floor level down there. They're stepping down each time. And sometimes if it's particularly steep, you'll find there's enough room for a cellar to fit at one end. But anyway, here we are. This roof has been raised, as you can see, and I'm sure this timber framing runs on behind this stucco as well. And it probably is all one build, and it may even have been a single dwelling at one time. And as you can see, we've got a shop. Hooray. But the end is interesting. The end of this is interesting. Here's a blocked doorway. This actually was jetted. This actually has been underbuilt, and you can tell it was jetted because if we just go back to just here, there are two peg holes just there, and that's to secure a brace or a bracket which was under the jetty. So that it's been underbuilt. Was there a shop on that front? It really is possible. And bear in mind, this is Church Street. And Church Street would have been much more important then than it is now. And I'm sure these little corner, trading on a corner like this would have been a very good spot to have. Another timber frame building, Wisteria Cottage. Wisteria Cottage. Now, something odd has happened to this building. Can anyone see what has happened? It's 3 panels high, and then there's a gap. What is going on? And then you look at the end. This truss is a later roof truss. I'm just wondering whether there has been a fire, it's a roof fire. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay, that gives, thank you, very nice. Okay, roof fire, did some damage, and they've taken the opportunity of actually putting a slightly higher roof on in the end. So, and also all bricked up here. And I wonder what happened here. Was the timber rotting, or was perhaps this open at some time? Had it been used as a shop, perhaps, at the end of the building, in a conversion of some sort? And it may be that an early photograph would reveal that. Then we have the old vicarage. I love this house. This is a beauty. And I very boldly walked up to the front door and knocked on the door. And very kindly, the lady allowed me to take some photographs, and she was very helpful. Note that it's set back from the road. That says I'm more important, and I want some land between me and the road. That's the first thing. It also is on this interior area, which obviously is a mark of status to a certain extent. And the other thing about this is we can divide it up like that. And I'm wondering whether this is hiding a particularly early building, and that this might be the upper end, the solar accommodation, this might be the hall, this is the cross passage, and this is the service end. This is a later building at this end, and the chimney stack here has got three flues, whereas we've just got one here, one there, and one there. That looks as if it's even now the service end. I could be right. I could be wrong also. So, cross passage hall. Is there a 15th century building hiding behind this remodelling of the 18th century? Lovely house, and a super porch. I mean, these are beautiful, just tapered. They're just tapered at the top. So refined, I think I would say. Very nice. I hope you agree. You see, this is the interesting thing about looking at vernacular buildings, and what we have been looking at is vernacular, as opposed to the grand houses which are smothered in gold leaf, is that you come to appreciate the subtleties and the smaller messages that these buildings have. In a grand house, you'll have gold leaf, you'll have a lot of decoration, and it will be all about showing off. And I sometimes feel it's a bit overwhelming when I go in a large house that has all that. It makes me think of Donald Trump with all his gold behind him. Have you noticed? So here we are, 18th, 19th century, a stone front. And this is a wonderful front. This has escaped the stucco, because it could so easily, somebody could so easily have said, oh, I don't quite like this stone, and actually hidden it. And I think it's very beautiful. I think this is perhaps, and I run the risk of offending somebody, but I feel that that's a little bit unfortunate. I'm sure it's convenient, but it does spoil this lovely facade, which is unassuming, but dead right. And this lower section here, which is very good indeed. It all works in such a pleasing way. Lovely. So, dated buildings. You've got a lot of buildings with dates on them. This one next door, the reading room, 1887. I just wanted to show this because it's the brickwork over the segmental arch here is a drip moulding. A drip moulding is where you have a stone, usually stone, coming to the edge of the window or the door, and then just dropping down with a little end at each end. And this is a kind of drip moulding in brick. really totally unnecessary, but looking back at an earlier form and carrying it out in brick. And there are a number of examples of this particular motif, if I can call it that, in Leintwardine. And it almost suggests that maybe the brickie, that it was the same person involved. And it's always something to look out for. And that is the case. I've spotted a number of things that were undoubtedly done by the same, probably by the same craftsman, certainly the same team. But isn't this lovely? These brick coins on the corners of the stonework. It works so well, and there are a number of buildings where this decoration is used, and it's very pleasing indeed. If you start looking at it, most people actually walk past and don't take a look. So I want you all to go out and have a look at these smashing buildings. This perhaps is a bit unfortunate. Why they couldn't have put an arch over here, why they couldn't have used the same colour brick, perhaps, I don't know, but there we are. At least the building is still there. You could do some tidying up here, couldn't you? Hey, I think so. You're going to throw me out in a minute if I'm not careful. More brick coins. Stonework. This stone is not particularly strong, I think you'll agree. I don't think it weathers terribly well. It's not bad, but some of it is not good. But we've got these brick coins on each side. I'm puzzled by this door at the end of the building, by the way. It's an odd place to put a door.
It's 2 cottages.
It was what?
It was 2 cottages.
Oh, that's interesting. I'd assumed it was one, simply because if we look at the front, we have this in the centre, the door to one side. I think if it had been 2, I think the door would have been there. But you may be right. Oh, I'm sure you are right. Wow. I must really be careful. I can see that. 1887. So it was 2 cottages. But again, look at these lovely brick coins. It really is so pleasing. And if only everybody would put an accurate date on their building, it should be done, I think. But Temperance Villa. I mean, that tells you something, doesn't it? I mean, I love that. It's just so good. That's proper material for the VCH, I think. Yes. Oh, by the way, we can just have a look at this. There's a very, very precise line down here. And I just wonder whether this building has been built against that building, or has that one been built against this one? Discuss, I think. But it's worth having a look and having a think about that, because it will give you the sequence of building going on there. I also wonder, have any of these buildings got cellars? And whether they penetrate into the Roman material. We have another dated building here, 1893. Again, a shop front, abandoned. And who knows what secrets this has. Sometimes if a building has got a date like 1893 on it, you might assume that the whole building is 1893, but very often you will find that part of it is not 1893, it's 17th century, and it's been coated in stone, and only one part of it is the new build. So be very wary of dated buildings. This one's fun. I think this is extraordinary. I love this building. Somebody is doing some wonderful work, repairing this brickwork and making it last. And they've got up to there, I see, and up to there, and up to there. And they've obviously, it needs a longer ladder. I think that's probably. But it's super. I mean, this has really been very well cared for. And it has a date stone on the end, which is 1910. My wife and I discussed whether it was 1901 or 1910, but I think it must be 1910. Someone will advise me otherwise, I'm sure. But I was puzzled by this because if you take a look, we've got a little decoration there. Something's gone from here. Something's gone from here. But it's been so well done in that brickwork. I mean, I'm astonished that they've got such a good match for the bricks and also for the pointing. It's astonishing. And I began to wonder, well, was that always like that and they've replaced this? I don't know. I didn't know what had gone on, but I knew something had gone on. And at the other end, there's 2 windows, and there's an odd line running down here and there.
That
so
used to be a shop.
I know. Here's the picture. And I was stunned to see this because obviously the door had been blocked, the door's been blocked, and this has been entirely taken out and 2 windows put in. And it's very, very carefully done. I'm really amazed. But look at this. We had the surgery, we had the post office, and we had the shop with a door at the end here. I think that's right. Chemist. Yes,
Chemist.
yes.
Go there to get the baby milk.
Oh, well, there we are. You see, you've got to write this down. You've got to write it down. But isn't it wonderful? And it's right near the church. So when you go to church, when you come, well, no, Sunday it'll be shut. But this high quality shop front, I must say, I'm sad to see that go or have gone because it's a really very fine shop front. And in fact, if we look at this one, here's one that survived. And this is by the same person. Look at the reading running up here. Reading, we've got a motif here, and there's one just there. It's undoubtedly from the same workshop. It's not exactly the same design, but it's from the same workshop as this one. And it's possible that you've got others hidden away that I haven't seen that are from the same workshop. But it's a beautiful shop front, that one. And long may it survive because they're very important. And here's another shop front. This one just in Church Street on the corner. It's been planted onto the end of this earlier building. This appears to be an 18th century brick building, and this is a 19th century building. And it's been planted on the end of that building. And in fact, we can see, isn't that nice? Here he is with his 2 assistants, his daughters. Somebody, I know you'll know this. You'll know all about this shop and who owned it and such like.
Annie Atson was the last one.
Oh, fantastic. Wonderful. Okay, well...
And Miss Jones and
Isn't
Martha Hardman and the dog nodding dog in the
fantastic.
window.
Well, it's wonderful, isn't it? And it's a loss, isn't it? It is a loss in our society today, because shops were all about communication, weren't they? I mean, you'd have a gossip, wonderful, and it would get passed around. But you can even see where the sign was here, and there's a bit of it just here, which wrapped around the corner. So I think that's a very beautiful picture, and it's great to see. And they're very sensible shoes, the ladies, so very sensible. Another shop, maybe a timber frame behind the stucco. This line along here is probably where there was a shop sign of some size there. I don't quite understand what this is about, but it's a little bit of decoration around there. And some nice windows. And again, long may it remain. It's so easy to, if you owned that, you would want to change it into sensible, ordinary windows and change it fully into living accommodation. But it would be a loss to the community, I feel. And it's great to see this one. And it was great to see who was in the shop, which is just lovely.
Originally, that was a baker's.
Oh,
a
right.
bakery shop.
Ah,
And on the
yes.
opposite side of the street, which was Meredith's,
Right.
there was also a bakery there.
Yes, how interesting. Right. You see, you say originally, but I'm going to say no, not originally, because with all these shops, they change. You know, there's always a change from the time they started being a shop. There will have been different businesses in them, but some businesses seem to have lasted longer in one place. Butchers very often stay in one premises for a longer time, maybe because of all the porcelain that they have to put on the walls, and you know it's more difficult to change. And bakers very often they're sort of, I suppose they're the staple bits of the place. Houses end onto the road. You might ask, why put a house end onto the road? Because it's not very nice, is it, really, for everyone walking past? But it's jolly nice here because you're on a hill and you're on the sunny side. And that's why there's quite a few of them. There's another one. That's where you would, wouldn't you? You put the house there and face the sun. I think it's perfectly understandable. And particularly bearing in mind that you're on a hill, so you really will want to be looking out. You'll have a nice view, of course. And here's another one on the other side of the road, which is looking towards the sunny side. This one may be timber framing. It's got a crosswing on one end.
I lived in that one.
Okay, all right, good. Well, you didn't knock it down, so well done. Yes. Was it comfortable?
Yes.
Okay, good. Well, you're the man to ask about it then, obviously. But it's and of course it's lower than some of the bigger houses that we've seen, and a lovely chimney there with all its chimney pots, and nice old chimney pots as well, which we like to see. And here's another one, end onto the road. This one's for sale, and it's called a cottage. Which I find a little bit bewildering, because cottage is small, isn't it? And this is quite a big. Oh, I saw that. Yes, I saw that, and I think that's original. I think that's because it was. I think maybe it was someone working in the big house. So there's the smaller unit here on the end. What's happened here? We've got hipped ends to the roof. So this suggests 18th century, but this end of the building is a later addition. So it may be when we had a different roof on the original building, and when this end was added, they put a hipped roof on that, a hipped roof there, and made the other one hipped as well. It's a cheaper way of doing it than having a big gable to worry about. So there we are, and more nice brick. Lovely, I love this. The coach house, and there's the coach house, and here's where the coachman lived. I don't know, probably.
It was a milking place. They used to get the cows in there. That was a cow shed.
Right. Okay.
Later it was a stabling.
Okay.
Horses.
You see, one house, there's a big history. There's a whole history to this. The question I would ask is, we've got two buildings, one butts up to the other. Which came first?
It was all one, when I came here, it was all one building with the house on the left.
Okay, but nevertheless, this butts up to that one in a rather awkward way. So what exactly is going on? And the spacing there is wider than there. So it's an odd situation. We've got a loft here. So was that where the straw went? Okay. And so the horses, that's a wide enough door for a horse, isn't it? So we keep the stable in there, and we keep the coach in here, I think.
Remember the Hickmans there, and before that it was the, they moved to Tenbury.
Cow shed.
Okay, well this
Why did he milk his cows in there?
Okay, well, you see, you're a mine of information. Wonderful, wonderful. And finally, another bit of beautiful brick. His brick, an entire front in brick, and they've left the stone to the side of the building, because the brick at this time, and it isn't always the case, very often the brick is actually the bit you hide and the stone you put on the front. But here we've got the brick is the nice stuff, and the stone is on the side where you can't really see it as well. But of course the house has been developed so that this has almost become the new front of the building. So it's really interesting, the sequence that's gone on here. And this building at the back, I don't know whether this is brand new. It looks like it. The bricks around here, I think, are modern bricks. So just with one house, there's some interesting things going on. And this is my favourite. It's fantastic. At first, I thought that these windows were actually at the same date as the building. And this is a late 19th century building. It may even be creep into the early 20th century. But if you look, there's a wider space on this side than there is on that side, and ditto there. So I think these must have come on later. They've been planted on later, but it still is a very fine building. I love the way these pillars are slightly drunken. They're just, just leaning in a bit. Okay, well, I think I'd better stop there or I'll get told off. So I hope that's given you some ideas of how interesting just the buildings that we can see are without actually going inside and unearthing all the goodies and the dates of the interiors. So I hope that sort of will charge you up to go and look and ask questions. I think that's the main thing. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, I'm sure you'll agree that was a fascinating talk. I'm conscious of time, but if anybody had if we take this time for maybe a couple of questions, if anybody wants to ask Duncan anything. But I'm assuming you'll be around afterwards if somebody did want to ask you anything. So, are there any quick questions? No. Oh, sorry, one. Sorry.
With reference to that house with the red and the yellow brick, yes. Is that something sort of... I've seen it elsewhere in Herefordshire, but not elsewhere in the country, but sort of patterns of yellow and red brick.
Yes. And it's something that you see in, well, you see in Elizabethan houses, you will see decorative brickwork, but it's usually black burnt brick making the patterns. But when we get into the industrial production of brick, say in Birmingham, and they're using a lot of sources for the clay and the colour of the clay, and they're firing them at high temperatures, we get all sorts of interesting colours coming out, and it's very much a 19th century thing, and it's something that Pevsner, when he wrote his first series of books in the 60s and such like, he dismissed this sort of thing. To my mind, this is almost a listed building because it's so good and so complete. And in fact, in the latest Pevsners, they actually do discuss these sort of buildings. So, but it's lovely. It's, they're everywhere, actually. When you start looking at them, looking for them, you'll see them everywhere. And I think the Victorian period was a very lively time for architects, and a lot of interesting work coming out.
Okay, you've now got an explanation why, if you saw a stranger going around the village taking photographs of various houses, you now have an explanation as to why. So maybe the History Society needs to put a disclaimer out just so that people know the reason for it. And also, I think you've made a number of people in the audience very happy whose houses you featured. Oh, yeah. So, no, well done. Just before I wrap up the meeting, Keith Ray would like to just say a few words. Keith is from Herefordshire County.
No. I was the county archaeologist here. Some of you will know between 1998 and 2014. But I've got an answer to one of Duncan's questions. He was talking about a cellarage survey. It would be great to do one again, but there was a former county called Hereford and Worcester, and they had an archaeology service based in Worcester, and they were funded by the then English Heritage to do an urban survey of Leintwardine, mostly for the Roman period, but they looked at all the cellarage to see the holes that you were mentioning down into the Roman
And there's
things.
a nice report somewhere.
There is, yes.
Okay,
Yes, it's
I'll
online.
check it out.
Online.
I'll check it out. Yeah.
As is my article in the Offa's Journal, which you won't have probably heard of, but it's available online. You just put Offa's Journal in, and in the 2024 volume, I think it's volume 6. No, sorry, it's volume 4. I've got an article that features Leintwardine quite strongly because of its role in the post-Roman period. It's actually mentioned on the first page of the Shropshire Domesday. It was that important. And it was supplying horses and riders to be the escort for the English and then previously the Mercian kings as they travelled up and down this Watling Street West, as it was called. So that's, as I said, available online, Offa's Journal. The two things I wanted to just mention is that I now work very part-time as a senior research fellow at Cardiff University, and we have a project looking at the origins of the March of Wales, the pre-Norman origins of the March of Wales. And it's a 3-year project. We have Leverhulme Trust funding for it, and we have a number of study areas, the most southerly of which is down in the Lower Wye Valley, but the nearest to you is actually in the Clun, and we're looking at the relationship between the British indigenous populations and the incoming Anglo-Saxons. We're looking at it from a historical and an archaeological standpoint. And as I said, Clun is one of our study areas. We'd love to come and talk to you about what we're finding. We've completed the survey part of the phase. We're doing small-scale excavations. We'll make sure that you know, with the landowner's permission, that you can come and look at those excavations. The second thing is that the Woolhope Club, obviously it's distinct from the Victoria County history, the Woolhope Club is celebrating its 175th anniversary next year. We will have an exhibition about the history of the club, but we're also having a number of different events. And we are particularly concerned that we come to visit different parts of the county with the exhibition, but also with talks. And we're very interested in partnering extremely vibrant groups like your one here. So, thank you.